Hello gearheads, welcome back to the channel, and this is a knife I use to open the package in my Urban EDC f5.5 unboxing video, and I'll just put a link up in the corner up there if you want to have a look at that. And a couple of people mentioned the Yaru in the comments. Now there's a few videos about the Yaru on YouTube, but for some reason most of them aren't in English, so I thought I'd put together my take and get it out there. So let's have a look at the specs. So this particular knife is an anodized blue titanium. Now there are a couple of other finishes available. I'll put some pictures on the screen there so you can see what they're about. The blade is in S90V and it's pretty thick. That's a 4mm thick blade stock. It's another pretty chunky Voxnez blade there. And that it's in what Fox describe as an acid stonewash finish. Now, I'm not really sure what that means. I'm just speculating, but I guess the knife is put in an acid wash or something and then chucked in the stones to just give it that sort of slightly worn finish. I mean, from far away it looks like almost a bead blast, but yeah, it does have sort of a bit more of a used washy finish, which I don't mind. I quite like that. Now I put the vital statistics on the screen there. It's the knife is 175 mils long and it weighs 105 grams, and I'll put the imperial conversions on there for those of you that like that. Now, in the handles, and I'll see if we can pick that up here, there is no milling in there for weight relief. They're just straight slabs of titanium, and that seems to be the case on the other Voxnez design knives I've got as well. There's no weight relief, there's no milling in there. So to give you an idea of the size, we'll do a comparison with some other popular EDC knives. So I have some observations about this knife, and we'll start off with the things that I don't like, and there's a few of them. So the action on this is very heavy, and it does have a pretty strong detent, which I believe is another Voxnez trademark. And I have disassembled this knife. I've actually tried putting skiff bearings in there, and weirdly enough, the action with the skiff bearings was actually even more sluggish. So I've got the original bearings on here, obviously lubricated as well. Now it's pretty easy to actually fail the opening, particularly with that flipper tab. Not that time. With the hole there, I actually really quite like the shape of that hole. Just it's quite distinct, that teardrop shape. It's possibly a little bit easier to open it. Oops, here we go. But I do find with that heavy action and that strong detent, it can be quite easy to fail opening the knife. And you see it's not really drop shut either. Now the flipper tab itself is sort of quite boxy, and there's no jimping on there at all. In fact, the only jimping on the knife is just there on the back of the titanium backspacer. Now one thing that is probably the biggest gripe I have with this knife is the lock bar access, and frankly it's non-existent. You can see they're flat, there's no sort of real relief there. And to release the lock, I find I have to completely turn the knife over onto its back to be able to access it and then release it. I can't just, like a lot of other knives with frame locks, when you get a bit of relief there, you're able to just access and release it. But with this one, generally I find I have to turn it right over onto its back to get decent lock bar access. Now the pocket clip. The pocket clip I find is quite good. It's a pretty unique design. You can see it's got this ball on the end of it. I'm not quite sure what that ball is made of. Look, if you know, just give us a shout in the comments if it's ceramic or something else. But it's quite a clever piece of design. So that ball provides the actual tension of the clip rather than having the clip bend in some way and that providing the tension. And that works pretty well. It keeps the knife in your pocket where you want it to be. However, as you can see, it's positioned really low down there on the scale. And so by the time you actually get it into your pocket, you've got a fair chunk of it sticking out, probably about that much. Now, I'm not a staunch, if it's not deep carry, then I'm not carrying it kind of person when it comes to clips. But look, if that was slightly higher up the handle, getting towards that end there, I think that would probably sit in the pocket a little better. So a few little gripes there, and in spite of these things, there is one aspect to this knife that is absolutely brilliant, and that is the ergonomics. In hand, this is just so comfortable. That big choil there at the front, yeah, it just works so well. And even though there's no jimping on the blade, just the design of it with that big clip there, thumb rests pretty easily on there. It really works so well. I find that ergonomics being excellent. That tends to be the case on pretty much all of the Voxnez knives that I've gotten to handle. It's just so good. It feels just so right in the hand, and that's something he really seems to excel at. That just works. So when I used the Yaru in my Urban EDC f5.5 unboxing video that we mentioned earlier, there was a comment that someone said they would like to see a comparison between the Yaru and the f5.5. So here we go. So I'm using the titanium variant of the f5.5, and that just kind of makes a bit more sense to me, seeing as both knives are in titanium. Now the f5.5 has the superior action. It just absolutely rockets out. Superb. Already covered what I think of the action on the Yaru. The detent's also quite strong on the f5.5, but it just, like I said, it just rockets out and it just deploys so beautifully, and the action is just really smooth. I think if you watch any other videos about the f5.5, I think a lot of them mention just how smooth that action is. It's just really nice, and that just makes it just a super fidgety knife for me. So neither of these, as I mentioned before with the Yaru, neither of them are really drop shut. This titanium one does need a bit of encouragement to close. Weirdly enough, the micarta one does pretty much drop shut, but the titanium one, that just needs a little bit of encouragement. Now the f5.5, we do have that jimping there on the blade spine, which I know is that Voxnez does on some of his knives. As mentioned before, this one doesn't have any. But that is placed in such a way that when I use that forward choil, my thumb just lands right on there. It's really good. So the Yaru does have fantastic ergonomics, which make it just so comfortable in the hand. But the forward choil on the f5.5, you can see there, it's quite a bit smaller than on the Yaru. So if you've got monster hands, you might struggle a little bit with this. My index finger does get pretty close to the heel of the blade. So if you've got enormous hands, probably not going to be the knife for you. The Yaru is probably going to be a better choice. You can see that forward choil is quite a bit larger. So the Yaru, as we mentioned at the start of the video, has an S90V blade, which arguably is superior to the M390 on the f5.5. But look, M390, in my experience, is pretty fantastic in terms of edge retention and performance. Can take a little bit more time to sharpen, but then I believe that's definitely the case with the S90V as well. I've never actually sharpened this. It's still got the factory edge, as has this. So, yeah, neither of them are going to be the easiest knives in the world to sharpen, but yeah, the edge retention performance is going to be fantastic on both of them. So that was just a quick comparison between the f5.5 and the Fox Knives Yaru, designed by the same person. As you can see, there's lots of similarities there. Chunky back spaces, roughly the same size. That forward choil, the slot for opening. Although I do really like the teardrop shape there on the Yaru. So just to conclude about the Yaru, I think that the stellar ergonomics make up for those shortcomings that I mentioned earlier. And I think the Yaru is just a terrific EDC folder. Like I said, once it's in my hand, it just feels so right. And that stout S90V blade with a chunky tip feels like it can take a fair bit of abuse as well. If you've made it this far, thanks again for watching, and if you want to do the YouTube things and you've got any comments, anything you want to say, you know what to do. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you on the next one.